Everybody, welcome back to the Sociality Show. It's Jonathan and Chloe here today. Chloe, what's up?
Not much. It's a beautiful rainy day out today.
Yeah, it's fall's fully showing up here.
It feels like autumn.
We're recording from Calgary, and we actually moved to my apartment because the space we normally record was a little busy today. So we were able to move all the equipment. So hence the new location in the background if you're watching the video.
We'll change the scenery.
We'll change the scenery. Yeah, but Chloe, it's good to have you and to be back. It's fall here, and we're excited. We're going to be rolling out a few more episodes, probably like about one a month over the next few months. And we thought we'd start just talking to you.
Yeah.
We've done a bunch of stuff over the summer, but for those of you who are maybe less familiar with Chloe, she's been actually on and off, like helping oversee a lot of the communication and social media for Sociality, but she's built a pretty cool brand for herself as well. And cross-platform, you're big on TikTok and Instagram and dabbling with podcasts and kind of a little bit of everything. So today we're going to be talking a little bit more about content planning and I think just taking the headache out of, I think, all of the stuff that comes with, just content these days, and I think finding the sweet spot of your authentic self in a world where it feels like everything's nonstop. Kind of just getting your tips and tricks on how to do that efficiently and well, and then just get to know you a little bit better because we haven't really had a chance to hear more of your stories. So we wanted to break the ice with this because Chloe's done a few like workshops and sessions, even with some of our members and a few things. And she's made a couple comments a few times. You've said you've gotten pretty good at going viral. What's that all about? Like the viral, like when you say that, like tell us a little bit more about that.
I feel like I found kind of like a foolproof way to beat the algorithm. Like when you hear of social media and you're wanting to post on social media, lots of people say, oh, the algorithm won't let my post take off. Yeah. But I think that I've found a way that I've kind of hacked the algorithm in a way, or like I found out what the algorithm likes and I'm able to use that to get posts that reach like tens of millions of people on a pretty regular basis. Wow. And yeah, for a while I was having like at least 1 or 2 in 10 posts would go over 1 million, like hit a few million. That's crazy. Yeah.
What was the common I'm assuming that this is going to differ, like that sort of cracking the code differs a little bit depending on the audience or the niche or 100%. What someone's doing. But for you, what was that kind of cracking the code?
Well, it's funny because it's not like a one take formula that will work for every type of content. Like I've had food videos go viral where I'm sharing a recipe. I've had funny videos go viral. I've had travel videos. I've had all different types. So it's not just like one niche that's worked for me. But one thing that I found is it needs to be super hyper relevant. So if you've noticed that there's something on social media that's happened recently, maybe a discussion about something or a topic that's really trending, that's a really good time to talk about that topic if you have any knowledge on it at all, or any video in your camera roll, even if it's from way back that you think you might be able to use on that topic. The second thing is if there's a trending audio or a background audio, any sort of sound that you can pair with it that seems to be on the way up, and there are ways to check if that audio is blowing up currently or about to blow up. Using that audio, pairing it with whatever your content is the second way. And the third way is just having a really, really strong hook. Like in the first like 3 seconds, but even in the first half second, like before people even realize what they're watching, to catch them and make it so that they want to keep watching. And basically when I do those few things, I found a way that like pretty much every time, it'll do really good. And if it doesn't do good, like if you keep doing it and you post like 3 or 4 of those videos, one of them will take off. Wow.
Those have directly translated, I'm assuming, to like a growth in your following as well.
Definitely.
And is that where you're currently seeing the biggest bumps is from those kind of viral content pieces?
Yeah, when I see a big bump, it's usually from a viral piece. So I've had some viral videos get me, even like a single video has gotten me 50,000 followers.
Oh, wow.
Because they'll go back and see it was part of a series where they want to learn more or whatever it is. There are videos that I do still see steady growth from that aren't viral videos, just like regular vlogging videos that might not take off as much, that kind of just show more personality and more like about what I do. But generally, viral videos are a really good way to grow really fast if that's your goals.
I think there's a space to be strategic in kind of how you leverage some of those factors or the stuff you've talked about.
Yes.
If growth is something that's important to you, which I think in a way for everybody, it's like it shouldn't be probably I mean, maybe it is, but it probably shouldn't be a goal just for the numbers or the fame. But I think if you're trying to build a personal brand, I think if you're trying to grow a business, I think if you're doing all those things, like, that's a valuable tool to have, right? Like, we've both seen in our own lives, like, as you put some effort into building, you know, a social media following or a presence, whether that's for a brand or for yourself or whatever, it does open doors. It does create opportunity. It does expand your ability to kind of reach more people with whatever it is you're trying to do, right? So, no, that's good. We'll get into more of that.
Yeah.
Why don't we just roll it back for those that maybe don't know some of your story, like kind of how did you land in all of this? Like, how old are you? What was the journey like?
For sure. I'm currently 26 years old and I do social media, like stuff involving social media pretty much full time right now. And my story on how I got into it kind of goes through a few different paths, but basically I've always known that I've been a creative person. I've loved to do art. I've loved to take photos since I was little. I had like a little disposable camera, and then when I was like 10 years old, my parents bought me this little digital camera for vacations, and I just absolutely loved it. So I've always known that I've loved to create things, no matter what it is. And as I got older, when I was in high school, I took like a elective photography class that was just for fun, but that's when I bought my first DSLR camera, and it was a huge moment actually for me because I was lifeguarding at the time. I was 16 years old and I had saved up and I bought it from Facebook Marketplace. I like drove there myself, and it was like my first big purchase. I spent like $300 on it or something like that. But that's when I kind of started photography and my love for photography and just wanting to learn and grow. And at the same time, Instagram had just launched. Like Instagram, I think it started in 2012. This was probably closer to 2015, 2016. That I was just starting to realize, you know, if I'm taking these photos, I can be sharing them on social media. Yeah. And at the same time, I was kind of doing some modeling at the same time. And it was just for fun mostly, but I'd had friends who were older than me, who were in first year university or college, who would have photo projects for their classes, and they'd say, hey, could you come and maybe you could stand in front of my camera and I'll try out some new like lighting or something on you. And so I would go and hang out with them. And when they were taking photos, I really looked up to these friends because I thought they were just so talented, and they are so talented. And I would ask them questions and try to learn. And as I was modeling and as I was trying to learn my own photography, I met up with a lot of different photographers, whether it was just to take photos with them or to be in front of the camera. And that whole time I was just trying to take in as much as I could because I just really enjoyed it. It was just something I really liked doing. And so after I graduated from high school, I did a year of college in Medicine Hat because I had grown up in Medicine Hat. I took a year of visual communications, and I thought, oh, maybe I want to be a graphic designer. But it just wasn't quite hitting the needs that I was needing at that time. And so I ended up going to university in Calgary, which is a big move. I'm leaving home, you know.
For those that don't have a clue where Medicine Hat is, it's like not a big city, just in southern Alberta in Canada.
It's got like 60,000 people who live in the city, and it's got like hundreds of kilometers of prairie in every direction around it. It's like a little farm town kind of vibe, even though it's still a city. So moving to Calgary, which is a bigger city, change of landscape was a really big deal. And I had moved here to then take journalism in university. And at that time, I think what I was lacking when I was in visual communications was more of like a storytelling side of things. Like I was doing art, but I couldn't figure out why I was doing that art, you know, like I felt like it needed to have a purpose. And so when I switched to journalism, I was like, okay, now I can tell a story through whatever I'm doing, and I can still take photos that accompany my story, you know? And moving, all of a sudden, I'm in a totally different place. And on the weekends, I would go to the mountains because, like I said, Medicine Hat doesn't have mountains. And I'd go out and just take photos with my camera and with my friends and start sharing them to social media. And all my friends from back home in Medicine Hat were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like these mountains, like I didn't even realize that that was so close, because most people hadn't ventured out. You know, we were still young. Like we didn't have the money to be going out on road trips every weekend or anything like that. We were just teenagers. And so as I started sharing all of these photos I was taking or photos that I was in, my social media began to grow really organically. And I just saw like a steady increase as I was in university. And I made it my goal to try to post every day. And I was posting every day at 8 a.m. right before class. Like I'd be sitting in class and I try to do my little morning post and just get something up there.
But at that stage, I'm assuming there was no real strategy to it. You were just about showing up. Is that right?
My biggest goal was to just show up and just post and like put stories up where I'm sharing what I'm doing, but just try to get something up there all the time, because I had been told from other people, if you want to make it on social media, you have to just keep doing it. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to just try and then give up, because that doesn't feel like a solid effort. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to try to give it a year. And then after a year, I had seen quite a bit of growth. Well, for me, that was quite a bit of growth. I hit like 12,000 followers after posting like pretty much every day for a year.
That's still solid.
Yeah. And I was like, you know, this is like really exciting, because then I started getting reached out to by brands asking if I wanted to do brand collabs and stuff where it was unpaid, but I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting free product. Like this is so cool. And then as soon as I started doing brand collabs unpaid, then all of a sudden things started taking off really fast, and I started getting more paid work. And then by the time I graduated university, I was able to, instead of going into journalism and taking that route, I was able to just do social media full time because I was getting so many opportunities. Actually, my last year of university, I took a whole semester off just to focus on the jobs that I was getting because it was so much. And so, that's basically kind of how I got to where I am today. I've been doing it for the last few years now, because I finished university, I think close to 3 years ago now.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy. It feels like it was just the other day, but since then it's been pretty steady.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like you started, like what was kind of cool is it was through social and through all of that and through the community that we got connected. Yeah. And then that also kind of, the skill sets that you were just building organically kind of led into you getting involved with more social stuff with us and with Sociality and with the team and everything like that, which
a massive part. Like,
was really cool.
Yeah. Like one of the first people who I met who was a photographer when I came to Calgary was your brother. Yeah. Matt. And, we went out to the mountains with Jay McDonald and took photos. And that's how then one of the times I met you and Davey and a bunch of the others at that meetup. And then getting connected with Sociality was definitely a huge part for me in this growth, just connecting.
Opening a lot of doors.
Yeah, opening a lot of doors, connecting with people, networking, making friends, learning from people. It was like a huge part of, I feel like, my growth, even creatively, just personally. So. Yeah.
How would you say, like now with time and experience, how would you say your approach to social has changed? Yeah,
at the beginning, like I said, I didn't really have a strategy. Like my approach to social media was just to show up, just to post. It didn't matter what I posted. Like I just wanted to put stuff up there. And now it's definitely not that. I definitely have a strategy. And I think now I've got goals for myself, and that really influences what I'm sharing. I'm a lot more intentional about what I'm sharing, when I'm sharing it, and why I choose to share that thing. Because everything I'm sharing now, like it might just be a photo, but it's also got a bigger goal. You know, like it might be a really cool place that I stayed at. And it's like, yeah, before I would share a cool accommodation I stayed at just to share that place. But now I'm using it to show this is how I can photograph a place if other places want to hire me to go there, you know? And so it's like, I treat it almost more now as a portfolio, so that when brands come and see my page or land on what they're seeing, they can think, oh, what could she do for me? You know, like how could we work together and benefit each other?
So it's gone from, I think, just probably a hobby, creative outlet to just kind of share a little bit of life into being something that empowers your business ultimately as a creative. Yeah.
And not only that, but another big part of what I share is like, I try to build like a community through what I'm sharing as well. So part of it, like there's the business side where I'm like, how would a brand view this? But there's also like, how can I connect with people and, you know, help people feel heard or teach people about something or educate people or spread awareness on something. Like I also have that whole user interaction side that was before, like, I think it was almost more of an ego thing. Like, oh, you can comment on my photos, you know?
Yeah. Or just like, hey, this is me looking pretty.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not that entirely anymore. It's like when I'm sharing, like I want to be connecting with the people who are going to be viewing it.
But I think you've done a good job of that. And that's something that I think, but I think maybe I like you can speak to it. I'm assuming that you started to see the change in that and that just being like a model page or something, like there was a limit to what you could do with that. I'm assuming.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It was weird. Like when I was doing modeling, I also felt very creatively limited. And now I feel like I have so much more creative freedom when I'm sharing to like do exactly what I want, share what I want, have like my hands in all parts of the creation process of the photo. Cause like a lot of my photos are self-portraits now. I'll just set up my tripod. But it definitely felt like when I was just modeling, like people would come to my page and they just wanted to see like a nice photo, but there wasn't a lot more than that. They weren't coming to learn something or to get inspired by something or, you know, and now I've got different goals where it's like, when you land on my page, I want you to come out of it taking something that either empowers you or teaches you about a place or whatever it is. Like I want people to leave
with something. Now in this current state, maybe walk everybody through like, what's that approach look like now?
I kind of got to a point where I wanted to sit down and look at what I was sharing and think, okay, why am I sharing this? And that was the very most important thing I could do is ask myself, like, why am I doing this? Like, why do I show up on social media? Why am I sharing? Like, what are my goals for my audience when they come to my page? And I realized there were a few main things I wanted to do with what I was sharing, other than just show up. I wanted people to come to my page to get inspired by my travels or to feel inspired creatively to go out and use a camera themselves. Maybe I wanted people to be entertained. I mean, it's like a basic thing, but entertainment is a part of social media in a lot of aspects. Like I wanted people to feel entertained with what they saw. And I wanted people to also come away with a piece of value, like education. So maybe I was teaching them about a certain place I was visiting or about a certain experience so that if they were to go and do that themselves, they felt educated about it. And so I kind of called those my pillars. Like every post that I want to share, I either want to inspire somebody, educate somebody, or entertain somebody. And hopefully every post I share will fall into one of those three pillars. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to share though within those pillars? Because before I told you I would share everything. Like I had modeling, I would have photography, I would have like everything. I would just share everything. But I was able to sit down and think, okay, what are those main categories of things that I want to be sharing, which is travel, which is lifestyle, which is creativity. Those were kind of my main things. So it might be just photography related, and that would be creativity, or it might be someplace that I went, that would be my travel. Then having those categories and having those pillars. So having those sections that I know I want to share about lifestyle, travel, creativity, and then education, entertainment, inspiration. I was able to kind of create a way where I could organize my content that I was making sure I was covering every pillar and every category and kind of creating a schedule out of that so that I would never run out of content. Because I think a challenge that a lot of people face when they're first starting out is it can be so overwhelming planning your content.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I do want to say, if you're at the point where you are only showing up, that's better than nothing. Like if you don't have this whole elaborate grid built out, that's okay.
I think start there probably.
Is it
right?
Really,
Like, I mean, I think what the advice you're giving right now is probably a helpful way to like synthesize and organize the stuff you want to share.
Yeah.
But if you're not there yet, or you're in a phase, like I would say what Chloe's probably speaking to is very helpful when you get just past the starting phase. I think when you're just beginning and you're just getting started with a lot of like creativity, you don't actually know what those themes are or what you love or what you care about. And you just got to be curious. But I think as you've probably like spent at least I don't know, 6 months to a year, you know, diving in, then it gets easier. Or maybe you're like, you know, a lot of more established folks and it's like, oh, you've been doing this for 5, 10, 15, like however long, but now you're wanting to get serious about actually sharing what you do or communicating what you do with others. And that's where I think like, you know, how you kind of approach this is, it can be really helpful. So how are you then kind of planning that or scheduling that? Like practically, what does that look like? And how planned are you getting in advance for yourself?
So I try to plan as much as I can. I mean, I'm not perfect. And there are times where I'm just going to throw something up because I'm like, oh, my life has fallen off track. I just need to get something up. But I do try to plan for the most part. And one platform that I've found personally really helpful for planning is Notion. Yeah. So before I move into Notion, every so often, like even once a year, but it would probably be better to revisit it like quarterly. I'll take a look at my categories and my pillars and first make sure, do those currently align with what I want to be sharing or have my interest shifted? Because if you are not excited by what you're sharing, you might want to switch to something that excites you, or else it's going to be harder to be showing up every single day. And that's something that I found. My categories have kind of shifted a little bit over the years. Like before it used to be really like adventure hiking stuff. And now it's more about like luxury accommodations. And it's okay to switch. But the first thing that I do is I take a look and I make sure everything excites me, that it feels really relevant and good. And then what I do is I kind of create a grid. This is before I move into Notion. I'll do this on a piece of scrap paper and I'll just like plan it out. And on one side, I'll write out in a list, like down. I'll have my categories. And then in columns along the top, I'll put my pillars. And then I'll draw lines. And so I've got a literal grid. And then, so for example, if you were to use the grid, you could be like, I'm going to go under the inspire pillar and I'm going to scroll down to lifestyle. So how can I inspire people by my lifestyle? And then under each little box that I've got in this thing, I'll go in and I'll write in little pieces of content that I'm thinking might,
or I guess that you might have even.
That I might have.
I shot this, I did this. So like I'm assuming it's both then? It's like stuff you've created or in the process that can fit in. And then a way to generate ideas. For
And if you don't have any ideas yet, it's good to look at your existing pieces of content and see where those fit in those boxes and see what performed really well, because you might look and you might be like organizing your content and be like, okay, this would have been a travel education piece and it did super well, like went viral. And then you look and you start to notice that all of your education pieces are doing really viral when you're talking about travel. So that might be a really good category to lean into for your planning. Maybe start posting that a little bit more often, or have it so that that's like a really big piece of the content that you're sharing. But I kind of just take a really big look at like what I have, what works, what doesn't work. Take a look at my existing analytics regarding those different boxes, and then move forward from there and think, okay, what ideas do I have? Where would they fit? And then what I'll do is I'll create a weekly schedule or even a monthly schedule, depending on how often you're going to be posting or I'll be posting. And I'll just slot them in and I'll be like, okay, on Mondays, I'm going to be posting inspire and travel. On Tuesdays, it's going to be educate and lifestyle. On Wednesdays, it's going to be, and I'll just go on and I'll kind of just like schedule it in. And that way I know that I'm not going to be talking too much about one topic or leaning too far into one of the pillars. I'm going to be covering all of them, but I can organize it in a way that will work with my schedule and I'm still consistently getting stuff up there. But that's kind of what I do when I'm organizing things. And then every so often I'll revisit it and I'll see, is one category just doing really bad, you know, like, and when I say really bad, like, is it either no longer inspiring me to like create content about it? Like, am I no longer excited by it? Or are my analytics just like tanking? And then sometimes I'll be like, okay, how can I either rework that section or like take it out completely and like shift it so that it fits more of like what's working in the current social media landscape.
You mentioned earlier, you were talking about Notion and tools, and I know I've used like Unum for like grid planning or anything like that for Instagram. Is that do you use anything like that? Like what's kind of the arsenal you're pulling together for all of your like social planning and strategy?
Okay. So right now there's a few different things that I use. I use an app called Preview for my grid planning. It's okay. It's an okay app. It's not like the best, but it definitely works for planning your grid visually.
Yeah.
Notion is the number one thing for me, for sure. Notion is great for just tracking all sorts of different things, for having your schedule, for a place to put captions if you want to do that, for tracking if you're doing partnerships, you can like set it up for like what phase of the partnership you're in or when you're going to be sharing that. It's really good that way. Just organization wise. Let me just open my phone right now and even just see, because I feel like I use my notes app a lot. Like anytime any thought comes across my head, like for a piece of content, like whether I'm like coming out of a yoga class and it just like occurred to me when I was like in class, or I'm like at the grocery store, sometimes something will just like come across my head. And I used to think like, oh, I'll remember that later. And then it would come to like later and I'd be like, why did I not write that down? Like, I don't remember it at all. And so anytime a thought comes across my head, I just put it in my notes and I'll refer to it later. And then I'll try to move those notes to a spot in my Notion to try to organize them a little bit better when I have time. But Notes app is even just great for you know. And let me just take a look at what else I primarily use. I honestly think those are
kind of the main ones.
Yeah.
You can do a lot in Notion. I mean, I've seen what you've done with like ours to build that all out for social planning. I mean, Chloe's got like everything from podcast to YouTube to like Instagram and then everything kind of woven in, so you can kind of see it all at a glance. And there's some great templates out there if you just do a little bit of like hop on YouTube or like do a couple Google searches. And YouTube's actually great for finding that stuff. I feel like there's a lot of creators that have put together some great Notion templates for content. You could start there and then customize it, you know, and then use some of these, like some of Chloe's suggestions from a like sit down and kind of do the like your work that then enables you to kind of leverage those tools. Yeah.
And my Notion is I've fully customized it to fit my needs. Like, I feel like if anybody else were to use my Notion, they'd be like, what is going on? You know, like it doesn't work for them. But yeah, I love that you can customize it and make it like fully your own.
We've kind of talked about your personal brand. I think a lot of that, the tips, tools, some of that really applies well, I think, to anybody who's a individual creative person that's looking to kind of like tell their story or weave that in and do that consistently. Does that work for a brand too? Like if someone's listening and they're like, I'm actually just trying to either create content for brands, like consult with brands, run their own content strategy for a brand or a company, like where is it the same and where do you see it kind of differ?
Yeah, it's definitely, a lot of these tips you can definitely translate to brands, but there are some differences. So for brands, I think it's really important just to sit down and again, identify what your goals are, because those are likely going to be very different than if you were just an individual wanting to share, you know, share your photography or whatever it is. And so identifying right off the bat, like what your brand's goals are, and then managing your content around that, I think is a really big thing. And so your different, when I'm talking about categories, like for me, I've got like travel, lifestyle. With a brand, you might not have as many of those. Like your main pillars, like you might just have your one category, which is your brand underneath each of them. Some brands might have more, but that's not going to be every brand. And that's okay. And that's where it's super important, I think, just to identify those main categories that those main pillars really that you want to be sharing about your brand. So it's like, are you wanting to, it could be drive people to your website. Are you wanting to educate people about your product? Are you wanting to create like a community? Like what are your goals as a brand? And then just really narrowing in on those and then breaking down what types of content versus what categories you could share. So before, when I'm saying, okay, you've got your pillars and then you've got all your categories, it might just be good to say, all right, what types of content can I share under each of those pillars, which might be like, for example, let's talk about Sociality. Like say one of our things is education. Like we want to educate people on resources. Podcast might be a really good form of sharing
to educate or provide information.
Exactly. And so I would write that underneath it. But maybe something like using a Pinterest post wouldn't be the best for educating people on photography. And so you can eliminate that. And that's where it's kind of a little bit different. But
I think there's a trend because we relate so much to people over faceless brands to weave more personality and like people into brands. And I think that I think as creators are kind of pitching brands and trying to, you know, like create, or you're running your own company or you're doing something like that, I think there's, like, you can speak to that too, but I think there's a massive opportunity to actually make a brand more of a person.
Yeah. And if you even take a quick look at TikTok, how it's evolved over the last few years, I think you can really see that, because when TikTok first started, for example, it was lots of really short videos, kind of like how Vine was, that were just like these really viral moments. But if you've looked at how TikTok is today, it's not that. You're not going to be getting 5-second video after 5-second video. You're getting 3-minute long videos, 10-minute long videos, these longer videos. And I think it's because, in the digital landscape, lots of people are shifting towards wanting to feel connected to somebody or connected to something. And a lot of those longer form content sources like are a really good way for people to connect with a story or a person or a personality or whatever it is. And it's the same for brands, definitely. Like I've seen so many brands shift from just like really beautiful imagery and like just like a really good storefront looking,
like
you know,
curated kind of
super curated
visual,
to suddenly taking a step back and making it more about the personality of the brand or the people behind the brand and sharing that human element. I think it's huge.
Any sort of trends or things that you kind of feel like you're seeing that you're like wanting to lean into more personally, or that you think are valuable for people who are kind of like, where should I be focusing my attention? Like, where's the...
One thing I'm seeing, and it's kind of like related to what we're just seeing, but is lots of brands or even people creating this community that feels really connected through their social media. And so like you might see certain brands that are launching like their little clubs or their memberships where it's like, it's not just them promoting products anymore. It's creating, like you have events, it's shrinking it and giving people a sense of belonging. And it's just giving more to the experience for people who come to your page than just consuming, because now they're a part of something. And I think even as a creator, it's really good to lean into that too and think like, who is my community and how can I connect people through what I'm sharing? I think that there's going to be a huge shift, if there hasn't been already, of just like people and brands really trying to build that out through their social media. Yeah.
And I think as things get wider and more broad, it's like it almost drives that need for it to also get small, right? Like I think there's just a human need for connection and feeling like you belong to something. And I think that's the hard part with social, is it's so wide. You know, I was thinking about that actually driving, I think today or yesterday, it was just like how many friends we have, like potentially have now because of these platforms and apps. And it's great. But then I started thinking like, of these people who I theoretically would believe are meaningful people in my life, like when's the last time I actually had like a conversation, like a longer conversation with them, because we're so bite-sized, so quick. Right. So I think I think that speaks to both that kind of core just need for human connection and friendship and all those things. And then how that has probably been diluted over the last while.
Absolutely.
But, yeah,
because I feel like when social media started, it was exactly that, social media. And it was really great for connecting people. But as it just got so big, like a lot of those platforms lost that personal touch or that like true connection. So yeah.
I think one thing that we've talked about is just how on your journey, you've been able to shift, you know, so many things in like our conversations with creators and creative entrepreneurs and especially solopreneurs. And it's just like, everyone's trying to make a go of it and build a career and either make more money or like just make enough to pay the bills and do this full time. And for a lot of people, especially early on, that requires a lot of outreach and dialing that in and getting good at selling yourself. But you and I have been chatting recently, you know, obviously there's like dry seasons and like busy seasons and all of the above. But you've kind of, you know, like mentioned to me just that with what you've built through social, it's really created a pretty good engine now of like inbound inquiries and potential work that, you know, you're able to now go, do I want to say yes to that or not? Does that align or not? But you get the choice, as opposed to having to go, what door do I have to knock on? Like this week to eat. My
thoughts on that are, first of all, if you don't have a huge audience, don't panic, because There are people who have massive audiences who are not getting those brand deals or those incoming jobs because they haven't positioned themselves for that. And you can position yourself and start even when you've got,
I agree, actually.
like no followers, or you're just starting out. And where I'd say what's important when you're just starting is, or at any point throughout your entire phase, is share what you want to attract. If that makes sense. So one of the biggest things I started doing is like when I started getting those like unpaid collabs that then eventually went into larger paid work, is everything that I was sharing, I would try to share like as high of quality as I could, because I was thinking through a brand's perspective, if they landed on my page, I want to show them what I could provide. And so I would treat everything kind of like it was an ad in a weird way. First of all, because that kind of familiarized my like even if it wasn't an ad, but I was treating a stay that might have been a paid, like a stay that I paid to be at, I would post it and be like, okay, if I were paid to be here, even though I paid to be here, what would this hotel, for example, look like? What would I want to be sharing? What would they want to see from my page? And I start sharing that because I would think, okay, if another hotel, like say I want to work with another hotel, I want them to know what I could provide. And so I would be taking as good of quality photos or reels as I could, just to show like, this is what I can do. And this is what I want to keep doing. And so that was one part, was just showing like what I can do, like kind of treating my page like a portfolio, but also by already starting to share stuff like that, I was trying to condition my audience to expect content like that as well, because I think lots of people are scared to post ads once they start coming in, because all of a sudden it's completely
it's like
different.
0 to nothing.
You know, it's like something completely different than what they've been sharing. And either their audience isn't used to that and it doesn't feel organic, or it just scares people away because it feels, you know, just like too different. So I was like, I want to start sharing the content that I want to be producing on a larger scale. And so, I just started like treating everything like a portfolio. Like I would go out and shoot something like I was getting paid $10,000 for it, but I was doing it for free. But like, I just wanted to show like, this is what I'm capable of. And then that was like also with the type of content. So when I decided I wanted to not only share hiking content, because I used to share lots of hiking content, like all my posts were hiking content. And it got to a point where I was like, I'm going to burn myself out. Like I do not have this energy. Like I'm not even a huge hiker. Like why am I doing this to myself? I was like, I need to start not sharing hiking content. Because I don't want all of my jobs to require me to go out on
require hiking. If it's like stopping to be like, what do I really want?
So I started to slow down and think, okay, if I want to shift and start getting jobs that are more like luxury accommodations where I can just go and get a massage, what do I need to share to attract those brands? And hiking content probably wasn't it. So I scaled back and I said, like, you know, as well as they do on my page right now, that's not the direction I want to go to attract those brands. And so I started sharing stuff that, like, to me, I associated more with like luxury lifestyle, even if it wasn't directly a luxury stay. I was like, how do I fit that vision of the person that they would hire for that, you know? So I kind of had to like think forward and not think, where am I right now? What can I create right now? But like think, where do I want to be and how can I become that person? And then like, while still trying to keep it true to myself and not act like something that I'm not. So it takes a little bit of planning, but I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully.
No, I mean, I think what's cool is it's a common thread really that goes back to there's a level of intentionality to it that, you know, and I really resonated with what you were saying with, that it's actually not that connected to the size of your social account. I think that's a big misnomer for a lot of people, is like believing that, oh, I gotta be at like this size to do X. You know, I had, you know, we just moved into like moving into this space and all this. And I had, you know, me and my wife were chatting and it was like, I had said, oh, if I had positioned my account more around like interior design and lifestyle and that, like way easier to be reaching out or like working it. And it's not that like the skill isn't there, like absolutely could crush the, you know, like sharing that, but I'm not currently positioned in a way where I've like put myself in a place where I'm sharing a bunch of interior lifestyle, like architectural design, right? And so it's like, I think but I can guarantee someone with a few thousand followers whose entire social presence was great interior photography or video or whatever would get those, the people would say yes.
Definitely.
And want to work with them
100%.
over even someone like me who maybe could easily do the work, take a great photo, but hasn't put that out in the world or demonstrated that that's something that I do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really good encouragement, because I think it's like, you don't need to build a big platform to then start doing the things you love. You
100%.
can actually just start doing the things you love.
Just do it.
And lean into those things and then allow it to grow from there.
Yeah. And on that note too, I think lots of people then get really scared and they're like, oh, now I have to pick out one thing that I want to be. And that's not the answer too. You don't have to have one single niche. Like, you don't have to think, oh, like I want to share interiors in the future. Now I can only share interiors. You can still keep it general and just sprinkle them in here and there to show that that's still something that you do. You know, like for me, when I was sharing all hiking content and then I was like, okay, I'm going to shift out of that. One thing that I wanted to do is make sure that I was always trying to keep like a really general approach to everything, like not diving too deep into any one segment, because then if I were to get hired for jobs in different fields, like I could, and it's not only travel related where I always have to leave home. And so like, for example, like by doing that today, I did an ad for Coca-Cola, which is like, that has nothing to do with luxury accommodations or travel or even lifestyle.
The Oreo Coke.
Yeah. But Oreo Coke.
Oreo Coke.
But it's like,
you guys have to try it. Tell us what you think.
It's actually, so that's just another thought. It's like, you don't have to feel restricted by that as well.
Because you now see, I feel like you 5 years ago or whatever would have felt like you had to hike a mountain with your Oreo Coke just so you could talk about it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that didn't always feel that authentic. Like for a lot of people, like I think it's like, it's a lot more natural to just hike, post your hiking thing and share like the Coke promo that you did like in a normal way that you would. I think it's just a lesson in all of it. It's like the more that you can kind of stop and think and ask, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? What do I want? Where am I going? And then create those stops and those pauses to kind of reevaluate and check in. It's so important. So as we wrap up, just any final thoughts just on, I think any of the stuff we've talked about, specifically like an encouragement for those that have maybe been slugging it out for a long time. You know, they're just like, it doesn't seem to be happening for me.
I hear that all the time. All the time. I hear people complain about it just not working for them. And honestly, I think having that attitude is part of contributing to like why it might not be working for you. And that's not in all of the cases. Like there are some people who can be doing everything right, but you need to go into it with this attitude of I'm going to make it work. And like, you just have to keep going even when it's not working for you. Because if you start getting frustrated and it's like, oh, this isn't taking up, I'm just going to stop doing it. That's your first issue right there. You changed whatever. There are people who are mega viral, who have like 15 million plus followers, who posted every day for 4 years. And they said, I'm going to be super true to myself. I'm just going to keep posting it. And not one video blew up in those 4 years. And then all of a sudden they had their one viral moment and people went back and were like, oh my gosh, this creator's awesome.
So much stuff.
They have so much stuff they've been sharing for years. I'm going to follow this person. And they went from like 5,000 followers to 10 million. But because they had that viral moment and they set themselves up for that success, when they had that one glimmer of success, they were prepared for it. Like people saw
because
their page.
They put in the reps, they'd done the work.
They had put in the work and they knew what they were doing moving forward because they had their rhythm and their flow and they weren't going to just drop the ball and be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I had a viral video, you know, like now it's like, you know what you like to share, like just keep doing it. People engage with that. And so like, I think it can be really discouraging and like 100% I've been there. I go through it every few months. Like every single creator who is posting consistently on social media is going to have those.
Oh yeah.
Like you are not alone in feeling that at all. Like it doesn't matter how huge the person is, like pretty much everybody's going to go through that, but you need to just keep going and it will turn around. Like I can almost guarantee it. Like it goes in waves. You just have to like trust, like you just have to believe in yourself and think like, you know what, like if I'm going to take this seriously, I have to take it seriously no matter what. Yeah, but I think like for me personally, I've had to completely now disconnect myself from the emotional side of like what to expect through social media, and like tell myself, you know, like this is a business. Like this is
my marketing.
This is my marketing. Like I'm going to have to put an ad out anyways. Like
doesn't matter.
Like it doesn't matter if it does good or bad. Like I'm going to keep going, and one of them is going to hit. Like as long
that
as
is marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no different than the person that knocks on 100 doors to make one sale, right? It's the same.
Yeah, exactly. And so you kind of just have to have that mindset of like, instead of being like, oh, like, woe was me, like I'm never gonna blow up, like this sucks, like I hate social media. You kind of just have to be like, you know what, that's what it is. Like that's how it's going to be. But there will be times where it will do good. Like I can guarantee it. Every person who's ever posted consistently, I'm sure has had that moment.
No, it happens. I've watched time and time again.
Yeah.
Like all the people in the community that I've watched just kind of double down and just show up. I'll look a year later and I'm like, there you are.
Yeah.
And it's differing levels of success. For some, that doubling down is like 2 million in a year. For others, it's like, you know, 10,000 followers or growth, but it's growth. Like people, the key, I think, in all of it is just like really coming back to your why and making sure that like, if the why is growth for the sake of, to grow your business, to build, to get, to create opportunity, to do all those things, then cool. That's a great reason, but make sure then it stays there, that it's not an ego thing.
Yeah.
Like keep your ego at the door, you know, like keep it out of, like you said, it's like disconnect it from you as an individual, because your worth is not at all tied up in that.
Not at all.
It's got to be looked at just like it's, if you're going to treat it like that as part of your business and part of building exposure and doing all the things you want to do, then that's the strategy and that's how you're using it. But the minute it becomes attached to your worth, like that's where people get into such big trouble.
Yeah. You just got to know, like you as a creator, like, your it's value, like it has nothing to do with the numbers or how your social media is doing, but like, you just have to believe in your own work and know that you're.
No, that's good. So if you're out there, if you're questioning, if you're having that, I think on the roller coaster, like we all usually are, where you love what you're doing and then hate it. Welcome to the club. It's okay. I think Chloe's advice and encouragement, and I think it's age old advice in the creative realm. It's like, keep going, keep showing up, and like lock in, get intentional, start being strategic, start treating your creativity, if you want it to be a business, like because my assumption would be, if you're thinking about social as a opportunity to grow your community, build an audience, then you are kind of thinking about it in a more business kind of sense. But be intentional, use the tools that, you know, we've chatted about today, and then send us a message, send us a DM, let Chloe know, like if there's anything, today that helped you, or if you got any questions, would love to hear from you. You can also send her a note, her Emily on the Sociality account as well. Let us know.
I'd love that.
I think that's it. Any last words, anything else that you had as we kind of wrap things up?
I don't know. I feel like we talked about so much.
Yeah, we got through a lot today.
Yeah, we did.
If you're enjoying the show, as always, leave us a rating. That's always helpful. And like we said, send us a note. If there's like someone you'd love to hear from, a theme you'd love to have us talk about, or just general feedback or things you think you'd love to see. This is something that we're continuing to build for the community and for you guys. So we want to do it together. So if you're on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Always helps. And we'll catch you guys soon on the next one.
See you guys later.
See ya.